And welcome back to the SiliconTalk with Rugare and crew. So, I got a job at Maddox, and that completely altered my life, and also the life of my family. You know, I got to go to university here in Australia. You know, I was going to be earning money that I could actually send home as well. So I got to be empowered to also not just to make a difference to myself, but to my family back Zimbabwe, South Africa at that time. So I practiced as a property lawyer for several years, and I was very fortunate to have some good mentors. One of the things that I've always done is I've always allowed people to contribute to me. What that means is that, you know, I surround myself with people who are smarter, cleverer than me, and who are doing exactly what I want to do or more. And when I make requests of them and they give me homework, I do it to the T exactly the way they said they wanted me to do it, and I get back in communication with them, and I will then set up my coffee catch-up with them to tell them what's opened up. You know, what I find a lot is that these days people are being quite judgmental with the mentors, or opinionated, like, oh, I'll do that, I won't do that, and expecting to grow. You won't. In essence, because the people who are the mentors are the people who also have networks and relationships, and they're also testing you to see how you're going to grow inside of the conversations you're having. That's, by the way, my own opinion about mentorship. So I've always surrounded myself with mentors, but whenever mentors have told me to do something, I do it. And I do it by the time they say they tell me to do it, and then I give them feedback about what opened up for me or what has bumped against. Now, my mentors have always said to me, Rugare, stay in the law for a couple of years, then leave. They themselves, some of them were lawyers, some of them were in different industries, but they themselves felt that they got stuck and trapped in a system that does not make them happy at all. You know, many of my lawyer mentors, you know, might have got married, had a mortgage, but completely unhappy at work. So they'll be making lots of money. You'd go out with them and they'll be smiling, but deep down inside they were not happy at all. And that's horrible and horrifying. And so I took on the coaching or the mentoring, and I stayed for several years at Maddox, and I worked at another firm as well. But one of my mentors then, when they met me for the first time, they said, I know that I'm meant to help you in your career as a property lawyer, but everything that you're speaking has nothing to do with property. You want to make a difference to people's lives. And so she said, instead, I'm going to take you on a journey and discover how you can use your life to make a difference. Now, that's a life-altering moment for me, because you can meet people who just listen to what is coming out of my mouth and say, this is how we're meant to do something, or she really listened to who I was and heard what was inside my heart. Now, being able to hear what's inside of another person's heart is not easy, but she was able to hear what was inside of my heart. And that was a life, it's also the course of my entire life. Her name is Rose Hansen. She's an international urban planner here in Australia, and she's extraordinary woman, and she makes a difference in Australia to the Melbourne city. So instead of Melbourne planning, she gets to be an advisor to the Premier from time to time, and sits on different boards where she's about creating sustainable cities and planning, and she's helped other countries create sustainable cities as well. So Roz is a pivotal person in my life. Now, she had just resigned from her work, so she had time, and me being hungry to live an extraordinary life, or to live a purposeful life, was also a demand on her. So I would catch up with her every fortnight. Every single fortnight she'd give me homework, and every single fortnight I would do the homework, and then we'd catch up for coffee to talk about it. So at first we thought, you know, I'd be, you know, a property developer. Then thought, what then opened up was that I really wanted to be a business person and also make a difference. I loved international relations. I also loved making a difference to people's lives, and I loved business, all those things. Now, on my journey of discovering that, I'd get to introduce me to her network, CEOs of different companies, CEOs of Stockland, wealthy billionaire families here in Melbourne, and it was very interesting how they received me. So what we discovered, looking from hindsight, was that I was a lawyer and I wanted to be a business person. So some of the business community would say I needed to do an MBA and go and do a Masters of Business Administration. But this was just also after the GFC. Some people would say that we love your personality, we love what you're up to, but you're a wild card because you don't tick all the boxes. And then others would just say whatever they would say, not give much information. But Roz would listen for what is the thing that's going to make a difference to me. So I had somebody by my side, to grow, which made a difference, to be able to bounce off ideas where, I only know what I know with my limited knowledge, but she's got all these years of experience and knowledge in networks, which I can rely on, and together it was a partnership of discovering my life together. It wasn't her telling me what to do, it was really a partnership of discovery of what my life was going to be about. During my whole time as well, working as a lawyer, I was part of the Australian African Business Council. It's now called the African Australian Chamber of Commerce. And in my role there, would meet African ambassadors and Australian ambassadors, and I would advise them on trade matters when going to Africa. So that was an amazing experience to do that on top of being a lawyer. So I love that. So I used to get that expression, to make a difference in Africa by being able to advise, ambassadors in any case. During my time, I volunteered at the Asylum Seeker Resource Center. I'm not sure if you know it. Extraordinary organization. Con, who runs that organization, this was years ago. He has made a massive difference to Australia. It's the leading institution for refugees and asylum seekers in Australia, and it's all volunteer based, and it ran like a business for those. So for 2 years I volunteer, and here. It's horrifying, all these stories from refugees. Particularly, I specialized in French and African migrants, so particularly from Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Congo, DRC was my specialty in creating claims. And most claims, unlike what we'll hear in the media, they will be granted asylum because there is a genuine threat to their life, in essence. So those experiences also cultivated for me a world where I got connected to people and different experiences as well. So here I am working as a lawyer, mostly private school kids, and here I am working with asylum seekers, with people running from the, seeking safety for their lives in essence. So for myself, I was in this whole world of working with people who are suffering to people who are billionaires in essence. So that also gave me a world to create from. In the end, I joined a startup, so I left the legal profession. So I was like, no, I'm no longer working. I left the legal profession and I put everything on the line. I saved like 2 months worth of money. And then month 1, no job. Month 2, running out of money. Changed bedrooms with my best friend for a smaller room so that I can pay rent. Getting slightly desperate. What am I gonna do? And then there was this organization called Douceur. Douceur is an educational company, and I was working with the president of the Australian African Business Council at that time, who was the director of their foundation, the Douceur Foundation. And I said to her, well, I've quit my job, I'm happy to do 1 day a week, because they were doing amazing work in Africa. So I was doing amazing work with her, and that was day 1. Day 2, we were going to brief the new Australian ambassadors of Africa, so I did a brief for all the people that were there. The founder of Douceur came along, I briefed everybody, talked to the ambassador. Then on my way back to the office, the founder of Douceur was like, just tell me a little bit about yourself. I said, well, I quit my law job and I'm here to be a business person. And so I'm looking to be a business person, and I'm looking for that opportunity. I've applied for MBAs, but I'm just waiting. Then he said, would you be interested in working for me instead? And if you want, you can do your MBA part-time. I said, absolutely. He said, come and come to the next day in the office, and then we can create it. I said, awesome. So I want to tell you what happened. So this is what happened. So the next day I go in and I was very clear what I wanted. I wanted to learn to be an entrepreneur. That's number one. So this is what I said to him. So I said to him, I want to be an entrepreneur. So I'm going to come to all your meetings and I'm going to shadow you and I'm going to take care of your everything, in short. So I'm going to be by your side and I'm going to take care of all your meetings, attend all your meetings, do all your follow-ups for you, and I'm going to learn to be an entrepreneur. And I'm not going to do my MBA, I'm just going to work full time, because in any case, I was going to do an MBA in order to get this kind of opportunity. So instead of spending over $75,000 to do an MBA to get the job that I wanted, I got the job that I wanted and got paid for it. Now, the next 2 years was amazing. So what we did was that we partnered with presidents, prime ministers, Nobel Prize winners to create leadership and management courses and then provide that to take to the university. So our philosophy is that we wanted people to learn from the very best, in management and leadership. And because we was working with the Lieberman family, they had all the relationships to make that happen in any case. So my job was to negotiate the deals and make sure that the agreements between presidents, Nobel Prize winners, and people, Fortune 500 CEOs, was all properly done, and also negotiate the multi-million deals. So in the next 2 years, I negotiated over 10 multi-million-dollar deals in Australia. I opened up offices in Mauritius, the UK, the United States, and Canada, and I got to do that without having to leave Melbourne. So what I learned for myself was being able to connect with people culturally from diverse parts of the world without having to fly and spend thousands of dollars to do that and make things happen, in essence. And I also learned to be an astute negotiator as well. So many people say you can't start a business without going to the country. To a certain extent, yes, correct. But there are always things you need to put in place before you spend thousands of dollars to negotiate a deal. Now, after 2 years, I had this experience of negotiating deals, and I still wasn't necessarily confident in myself. I was still in the realm of doing more, working harder, surviving. For myself, it was like, I still wasn't, by that stage, I think I was still not a permanent resident at that stage. So I was still in that context that I still need to make a life for myself. So, and I never got to see the power for myself, because the person who was still negotiating the deals and taking those actions was still the person who was not comfortable in his own skin, who was still not comfortable in his sexuality, who was still thinking that white men were better than black men. So here I am being an advisor to some of Australia's top business people, but who I am for myself is still worthless. So I never got to experience my power or my greatness during that period of time. As I started doing lots of personal and professional development work with an amazing institution called The Landmark, and I did the Landmark for my entire life, again altered. And inside of doing the work there, I got to see that the stories I had created about myself and about my worth, about what I'm capable of and not capable of. And it has been one of the very few organizations that actually alters your life and the way you think with velocity. There are many organizations that do that, which is all very valid. But for me personally, it's one of the organizations that makes the massive difference. It's made the massive difference to the quality of my life, and I'll share more about that. So instead of doing those programs, I got for myself that, guess what? I've been pretending to be an entrepreneur. Instead, I created a multi-million-dollar company for who? For somebody else. Crazy. Not wrong, but kind of crazy. So I recreated my opportunity with them. So I met the founder and told them that what I wanted to do with my life, and then I started my own business, and then they became my first client. So I continued negotiating deals on their behalf. Now, during this period, I was also very inspired by the work that Jusseur and the founders of Jusseur were doing. So they were doing work in Africa, making a difference by having the Jusseur children's stories. And the intention was, children writing stories and then a cross-country exchange of stories. So one of the things about me, or growing up in Africa, and Zimbabwe particularly, is that we don't get to read much of our own literature at all. So I speak English. We did the A levels. Everything was our examination was through Cambridge. I grew up reading Shakespeare. I grew up reading Charles Dickens. I grew up reading my education was very Anglo. Not wrong, I'm grateful for my education. It's given me also new opportunities. But what it did not provide for me was a connection to my own culture, in essence. And so what they were creating was like, what, you're able to read our own stories? That's just amazing. Because sometimes when you read something from somebody who has created it in a context that you understand, you just get so connected to it and can open up new opportunities. And they were doing all this work, and I thought to myself, I can do a better job than them. That's what I thought. And so I decided, inside of hearing what my uncle was doing in Zimbabwe. So my uncle had created a school in Zimbabwe during the global financial crisis for people to go to school in this rural area, and it was amazing. Because what I was amazed by was that this rural village was not waiting for donors to come and make a difference to them. They'd taken responsibility for the education of their own village and making it happen. And it was profoundly moving. And it was in a village where my grandmother was denied an education herself. So when I was talking to my mom and my dad about it, I was like, what is going to be our contribution to that? And we had decided as a family that we're going to send 2 girls to this school at that period of time. So fast forward, it's like, this is in my heart. It's like, wow, this is just so amazing. Here I am living in Australia, and they're in rural Zimbabwe. Like, young kids actually made the bricks to build the school that they're learning in, and I've now got my cushy job here in Melbourne, whatever that means. So I was like, how else can I make a difference? Yes, we can sponsor girls. I'm not a billionaire, I'm not even a multi-millionaire. I've got relationships. So I started sharing my vision, and my vision was really to empower and enable girls to go to school in Zimbabwe. So, I just started sharing a story about my grandmother who got denied an education. I started sharing the story of the girls who actually built their own school, and how difficult it was for them to even just have the fund for them to go to school. And people wanted to make a difference. Then I thought to myself, how can we actually organize this in a way that will make the difference as well, in an institutionalized way that provides credibility and provides the results? So I started the Gomo Foundation. Gomo is my surname, it means mountain, but Gomo, it also means giving others more opportunities. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, what I exist for is to help and to empower people, to help them bring their dreams to life. So, an expression of that is through the Gomo Foundation. We started sending girls to school. And we did a pilot program, we sent 13 girls to this school. We saw that it wasn't producing the outcomes that we wanted, so then we started sending them to a top high-performing school, a top 20 school. And today I'm so proud that we sent 7 girls to school, and all of them are sponsored. It costs $3,500 to send a girl to school for an entire year, and we've got commitments to send girls for the entire education. So Gomo has been in existence for the past 6 years. We also sponsored our first girl to go to university, Cecilia. When I was in Zimbabwe, when I was 28 years old, how old am I now? 30, when I was 30. Crossread Investment, a subsidiary of the Red Cross, asked me, there's this girl, her name is Cecilia, she's finished her A-levels. Her parents had died from HIV and AIDS, so she's an orphan. So she had got a scholarship to do her A-levels, that's the year 11, year 12. And they said, would you be able to support her? I'm like, in my head, I was like, I don't have funds, I don't have money, I'm still just getting my life together. I've got our commitments for my sister, back in South Africa. And I said, yes, we'll make that happen. I shared her story, and she has been completely taken care of by her donors, and she's now in her last semester of university doing a degree in accounting at the University of Zimbabwe. Now, this is the part that's special. It's not just about education, so it's about empowerment. Because education, so what's the point of going to school if you can't get a job afterwards? What's the point? What's the point if you can't eat, if it doesn't put food on the table? It's a question mark, don't answer it necessarily, but think about it. So she says, this is what Cecilia says, she says, thank you so much for the opportunity of going to university. Now I know that I'm no longer inferior. And now I can use my voice to let other girls in the same position as myself to know that they too can make it. And that's what she says. She's open. You know, last semester she had a grueling workload. She's doing 7 subjects. I'm not sure why, but doing 4 subjects at university is already tough enough, but she did 7, so she failed 2 of them. And then I just inquired, like, not from anything's wrong. You know, what happened? She says, you know, I was living near the campus, I didn't have the resources. Then she wrote this letter to her donors. She says, I am so sorry to disappoint you both. I'm so sorry. I want you to know that I've learned from this experience and that this has made me stronger to persevere, to work harder. You can count on me to do my very best. Who talks like that? Really? So I know we're getting the job done because of the way they are communicating about what they're dealing with in their life, in essence. So the Gomo Foundation started in that regard. And then when I started my first business, it was more about consulting, and I was terrified out of my wits. So here I am, you know, having the backing of billionaires. You know, there's no boardroom I couldn't enter in Melbourne or Australia. And then I was going off my own. So all my insecurities showed up. Every single insecurity showed up. And I also have the privilege of living with Andrew Bauer, who is here today. You know, it's amazing because he was there side by side for that part of my journey as well, where we lived together, created, you know, that we're going to be entrepreneurs, we're going out, we're creating. We had many breakdowns when I break down things that didn't work, and also successes in that regard. So some of the things that I dealt with were, I would go to meetings, people would want to do work with me, but in my head, I would say to myself, they are lying. Why would they want to work with a flamboyant gay man that being nice and polite? So I'd go home. So I'd go to meeting after meeting. People would expect me to do a follow-up email. I'd go home, open my laptop, try to type out an email, and all my limiting beliefs would show up. They're lying. They're just being nice and polite. They're just doing the right thing. So then I wouldn't send the email. 9 p.m. come, I'm hungry, order pork ribs, remember pork rib days, 9 p.m. by Uber, eat, then sleep, watch TV. And I was pretending that I was okay. I was so scared out of my wits, and I stopped doing what I knew to do, called surround myself with people, being vulnerable and being contributed to. In that regard. So for a whole year, you know, I was living off what the deals I was negotiating. I borrowed money from my uncle. So Andrew Gasco, I call him my uncle. He lent me $30,000 because he believes in everything I do. So unquestionably, he always supports me in every single way. And I ate the money in pork ribs. $30,000.
Can I offer something as contribution here?
Would you like to share?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, you actually refused to be contributed to as well.
Yeah, I refused to be contributed to, you know, because I had this, I didn't want to be vulnerable. I was scared. I was completely scared out of my wits. Like, I don't want to be a charity case. I want to be independent. I have to do this by myself. You know, it was like, I've already done that for however many years. So it was now my time to prove to myself that I could do it by myself, whatever that meant. So guess what? I ran out of money. I had to leave the house in South Bank. I actually then had to start being contributed to. I left, went at a friend's place, slept on their floor, had to create with them to feed me, put a roof over my head, and negotiated coaching them in exchange for food and rent. It was a horrible time of my life. I was depressed, and I didn't even know I was depressed because I was still pretending to have it all together. And you know, I had to create structures to empower me during that period of time. I used to have a phone call at 9 a.m. with this guy called Rowan, just to make sure that I was out of bed and doing things, in essence. Because I was on my low, I was making myself wrong. You know, I said to myself, I was weak and useless, I failed, I'm a bad ambassador for all Black people. You know, I've been the one given the opportunity, and I've wasted the opportunity. Now I'm going to fit into the story of another Black person who's just, you know, taking up space. That's how it lived for me. So it was really a very difficult mental time for me. However, I am grateful for the community that was around me. By the time I reached my lowest, I was now willing to be contributed to. When you reach your lowest, you become vulnerable. So sometimes I'll meet people when you offer something and they have an opinion about it. No, you haven't yet. They haven't suffered enough. When you suffer enough, whatever it looks like, it's different for every person. Suffering is different from every person. So for me, suffering was running out of money completely. Knowing that I was running out of money wasn't yet painful enough. So the knowing of it wasn't painful enough. When I actually ran out of the money was painful enough for me to take some action around it. So when I reached that point for myself, I had to learn to be vulnerable and share my circumstances with people and allow contribution and clean up my life. So I spent time cleaning up my life. I had to go back and get a job again because my finances were in ruin. And if I didn't, I was going to go bankrupt. So there's all the shame, the guilt, like how do I even communicate with my family that, the person who had negotiated multi-million deals is now living on a floor somewhere in Carnegie. How do I communicate that with them? But I learned to be vulnerable. I communicated with my family what I was dealing with. I communicated with my brother. So my brother is a high performer. He's one of the smartest people on earth. And I don't say that because he's my brother. He actually just is. And in reality. And so I was like, my brother's going to think I'm a failure. And I was always in competition with my brother. I didn't even know that. Surprise! So talking to my brother about what I was dealing with is like, that's another failure, because, oh my God, how is he going to think? And the thing that was extraordinary was when I continued to share my story about what I was dealing with, my family were amazing. My brother was like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I just wish I was there for you, I have had mentors and, he says, my success is not because I'm just talented. It's because I've had networks of people who've also championed me to get to where I am, and he said, I'm so sorry. And that was so profoundly moving to hear that from my brother, because I had thought he would have loved me or thought that I was an idiot, but instead what I received was love. And I would have a daily call with my brother, which is really special. Every morning I'd call my brother, he would check in to see if I was mentally fine, and I started putting things in place to empower me in that regard. So fast forward, I tidied up my life, worked as a lawyer again, and then what I had thought was a failure, being in business, kind of altered. So what I got to see was that I just hadn't produced the results that I expected to produce in the time frame that I wanted. When I actually went back to practicing law, then people actually wanted my services. And so I go to the law firm and I tell the law firm, before I came and joined you, I've been coaching people and now they want to be coached, but my employment agreement prohibited me from doing anything else without getting the managing director's consent. And I wanted to do that with integrity, and they said no. So I came back to my friend and told them, my boss has refused for me to coach this client, and he says, well, why don't you quit? We start our own law firm and you can continue coaching. And so that's what we did. And so that's how the birth of Simbisa Law started with my former business partner, Rugare. And Simbisa means to strengthen and empower. And we created this law firm really to empower entrepreneurs, investors, and small to medium businesses to help them start, grow, and scale here in Australia and around the world. And I was really scared starting my own law firm because what I thought was being a lawyer was what I had seen in traditional law firms. And I got to see that I didn't have to practice law the way other lawyers were doing it. I could do it in a way that actually works. So we created a firm where we had fixed fee, so 99% of our work was fixed fee. We'd have strategy sessions, we'd have phone calls with them, we'd send proposals, we made it mostly electronic as well. And we had so much fun. And throughout my being a traditional lawyer, I never knew you could have fun because there's only one view of how to practice law. And we created our own way of how to practice law. And 2 years in the making, Simbisa Law has made a difference to hundreds and hundreds of people. In a year, it's typical just to talk to over 200 entrepreneurs a year, and of which we have 92 clients in the past 2 years. So I'm very proud of the difference we've made here, particularly in Melbourne, to the startup community, entrepreneurs and investors, and being paid for the work that we did, because that's an acknowledgement that what we have to provide is also valuable in any case. And as well as that, I'm a high performance coach, and so my coaching business has actually grown. So I'm now in the process of actually selling my law firm right now, and which is a victory because, in 2 years' time, I've created something that somebody else wants to buy, and that'll be my first exit in business for the first time in my entire life, and which is something that I'm proud of, as not just for myself, but as an African Australian, and also an acknowledgement of my whole community for what they've invested in me, that I can start a professional services company in 2 years. In 2 years' time. So what I'm now using my life for is I now use my entire life as a high performance coach. So you might be wondering, what is a high performance coach? Some people might think, is that mentoring? Being a coach is not being a mentor. A mentor is a person that gives you ideas of which then you choose to act on. As a high performance coach is like, when you have a tennis player, Serena Williams has a coach, and her coach will tell her, to the left, oh, that's Beyonce, but Beyonce somehow, but she has to do what her coach says in that regard so that she can produce the results. If Serena is not performing, who do they fire? Serena Williams or the coach? The coach. So I'm not a mentor, I'm a coach. I'm a person that helps people, human beings, optimize their best inside of them. And if they don't perform, guess who gets fired? Moi. But I back myself. I have discovered the things that work inside of maximizing and optimizing the human potential in that regard, and I love using my life for that in every way. Most of my clients, they're typically people who've been in business for the 8 to 18 years, revenue between $1 million to $2 million. To help, they've been in business for a long time, they're disgruntled, close to divorce, and I help them clean their life so that every area of their life works and ensure that their business talks to the real purpose that they wanted in their life. Now, even though I mentioned that's the level of clients, I'm actually creating my first group coaching program for entrepreneurs, which is going to be starting in July. So if that's something that you're interested in, please make sure you let me know, because that's something that I'm working on right now to bring to existence with my team. Great, thank you, Antula. So that's my passion, really ensuring that you get to live what you see is possible for yourself. I'm your partner in that regard, and I bring my whole life and experience and networks to make that happen in any case. So that gives you a sense of what I've been up to for the past 15 years. I talked a lot about business, but what I also want to communicate is that it's also been about life. I'm grateful to be in a relationship as well, because for myself, how I would see life is that I'm highly independent and I can't co-create with another person, and I've had the privilege of co-creating my life with Brad. So that's also a victory for myself. I've been away from my family for the past 18 years, and yet we have an exquisite relationship. So it has taken lots of communication to be able to do that. So it's not just the context of one area, it's like really working on bringing wonder to all areas of your life and the areas that matter to you. And that's what I'm committed to continuously do for every single human being. So I'm going to pause there and create the space for questions in any case. Thank you so much for listening.